All right, welcome back to the Constitutional Rights Pack candidate series here. We have a great candidate today, Lindsay Piper Loomis, who's running in South Carolina. Again, let me explain what the candidate series is about. We are here to get candidates on the record prior to us endorsing and giving them any kind of financial support. And it's real important for us to know and for you to know who these candidates are, what they stand for, what they will do when they get elected, and so we want to get that on the record, live and in front of the voters. So, welcome, Lindsay. I appreciate you taking the time to do this interview.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
And look, you're in an extraordinarily interesting race with one of the most, if you're a conservative, with one of the most duplicitous rhinos who holds that seat, a first-termer, Nancy Mace, who came in on the coattails of President Trump and did everything she could to utterly destroy him as soon as she got sworn in. And there's a lot there. There's a lot to unpack, and I'm going to give you an opportunity. Normally, we don't talk a lot about the opponent, but I want to give you an opportunity to talk about your opponent because in this particular case, she's been such a great disappointment to all of us in the conservative movement. But so tell me about your background. Where do you come from? I know you have a really interesting background and interesting family life, and I'd like to hear about that.
Yeah, definitely. So I have two girls. My husband and I have been married 16 years. He's a combat veteran. Our girls are nearly 19 and 15. My husband, I married him when he was active duty, and we transitioned into the veteran life. And I was a caregiver to him for over a decade. So for 16 years, I've been advocating and fighting for military, children of wounded warriors, and veterans on our own terms. I was never a part of an official organization in that capacity. Every crack that my husband fell through, we took that place and used it as a solution to help others. And people would ask us, how did you get the wheelchair paid for? How did the VA do that? Because the VA was denying that. How did you do this? And so over time, I began working with leaders across the nation in that capacity. Obama wanted to separate my husband without benefits when he became non-deployable for service-connected injuries. And he also wanted to take a rank away that he was about to sew on. And I said, hell no, excuse my language. It's not my usual terms, but I worked with two of his commanders. My husband did retire, and he sewed on his stripe the day of his retirement. And so since that date, I've been fighting. I also have been a small business owner, and personally, I went through a lot of adversity growing up. I escaped extremely difficult situation when I was 16 and a half.
Wow. Look, what you've gone through with yourself and your family, it is amazing, and I thank your husband for his service. I mean it's incredible. There are so many wounded warriors in our nation for quite frankly for these endless wars that went on, and so just to divert from my series of questions here, watching what happened in Afghanistan recently with Joe Biden, how did that affect you and your family?
Well, it angered us, and it called me even to a more sobering moment, because war is so profitable for these treasonous people that are pulling us into war. Those men and women should never have been left, and we know that we still had men and women. We still have some people there. That entire thing it was very difficult, and it just makes this fight even more worth fighting to save us from future situations like that, and to bring people into accountability in this administration. I don't even think they care personally, but my opponent didn't say anything about it other than just a few chatty remarks on Twitter.
Well, it was maybe one of the most embarrassing one of the most backstabbing things that an administration has ever done. Quite frankly, there are still people there left stranded in Afghanistan to this day that have not made it home. Talk about just a comedy of errors, but it's more than errors. It was just a complete a complete and utter disdain for all that the servicemen did accomplish in this 20+ year war, and it was not acceptable, and we have to make sure that these Democrats pay for it at the ballot box. So I want to hit you with a couple of questions. You call yourself a constitutional Christian conservative mom. What does that mean to you?
Well, right now it means that our Constitution is being ripped and shredded apart in every area of society. For me, I've been a homeschool mom in addition to being a caregiver to my husband and a small business owner. I saw the indoctrination of the left of communism, socialism, and Marxism years ago. I spearheaded a movement actually in Texas when we were still in Texas to opt out of standardized testing. Our daughter was failing in that capacity. So constitutional Christian conservative means that we live and breathe and die by the Constitution, which has self-evident biblical truths in it. God-given, irrevocable rights. All men, as the Declaration of Independence states, that all of us are created equal, endowed to us by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. And what we see right now is that all of those rights are being stripped away from us. Some of them have been stripped away and we're gaining those back. But the Constitution as it stands is to protect, defend, and preserve every fiber, every piece of society in that freedom.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and there are a lot of conservatives that a lot of people who run for office that say they're conservative, and that will say that they're Christian, and then get into office and forget about all of that, and start shredding the Constitution themselves. So that's one of the reasons why we do this interview. So let me ask you a question. Tell me in your words how you look at January 6th and what happened that day.
Well, I was actually in Washington, D.C. During those hours. I did not go to the Capitol building, but personally, I had spoken at a rally on January 5th, and on January 6th, I personally witnessed the busloads of people that were coming in and out, that were changing out of what looks like brand new MAGA gear. It wasn't what we experienced listening to President Trump's speech, where he promoted peace, law, and order. He did not incite violence. And so we knew something was going on. We experienced the horrors. It took us hours to get back to our Airbnb. We had walked to a hotel. Anyway, that's a story for another day. But when we got back and we saw what was on the news, it was the complete opposite. I did an actual video footage and told the truth of what was happening. We were threatened personally by Antifa, but there was 13 of us together and 2 of them, so that was really not smart on their part. We have prisoners that have not been given due process. We know that some of them have been falsely accused. One man, I believe, I don't know the full story, but he was pulled into one of the buildings because he had an allergic reaction to, I think, the gas, and he later died inside of the prison. These individuals have been tortured in the sense of where they're at. It's just horrific situations. So for me personally, we need to take care of what happened that day. We know that people have been voted or held in contempt, like Bannon. He was not there at that location that day. I personally will stand for those individuals to be set free and to have a proper process. The other piece that I would say, as we're watching all of these committees play out, they don't want to say anything about the FBI, the CIA, and those that were there undercover that day. There's no accountability for these government agencies. When is that accountability going to come forward? So I think it was a great tragedy on what happened to the people that day. I don't think it's okay for anyone to break into a building, of course, but that's not what we saw that day. The footage has been censored. We see people that have been produced footage that showed the Capitol Police allowing people into the building and beckoning them in.
Well, not only that, yesterday, matter of fact, as of yesterday, there was a video showing the Capitol Police actually opening the doors of the Capitol from the inside. Yep. So it wasn't busted down; it was opened, and people were, let in. And quite frankly, these are questions that we're not going to get to the bottom of with a Democrat-run Congress. And your opponent had a completely different take on Congresswoman Nancy Mace had a completely different take about January 6th. And matter of fact, she got involved in the second impeachment of Donald Trump, and stood for and stood with quote unquote Republicans, like Adam. His name escapes me, and Cheney, Liz Cheney, and all of the Democrats who want to destroy this country, destroy Donald Trump, and destroy this conservative Make America Great movement. And that's really what the January 6th thing is about, is not only in a sense are they punishing people, but they're doing it for a very specific reason. They're keeping this alive for a very specific reason. They're telling every single American that if you don't like who we choose for president, you're going to go to prison. You can't speak up. You can't let your voice heard against the government, or else you're going to pay a penalty. And it's about time American people really take another look at what really happened on January 6th. And I think the American people already know. The people who were there, I was there, and I didn't go into the Capitol. I was close. I just I'm a 50-year-old man, and quite frankly, I can't throw down like I used to, so it wasn't even a consideration. But the the idea that that these people went to have their voice heard, and have their voice heard about something that's so important, like preserving our democracy, like the Democrats like to spew, and get thrown in prison for it. This is good. This was a dark time, and this is a dark time in our nation's history, and we have to write it, and we have to write it quick.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, reiterate that President Trump did promote peace, law, and order, and anyone that loves the Constitution would not violate that. And so, personally, of being inside the Capitol building many times, I know there's a lot of checkpoints. So I know that these individuals would not have that love the Constitution and love our nation, would not have just tried to go in and destroy something. That just is not logical to me. Even in of itself, they would have only gone in had someone said, "Hey, come on in. We're opening this up to you." That's more logical. So I just wanted to finish that thought out.
Absolutely. And look, they were grandparents. They were your neighbors. They were firefighters. They were, police officers. They were regular people who showed up. They were the people that go to your kids' school, and they're being locked up and hunted down like animals. Let's talk about critical race theory for a second. I live in Loudoun County. Nobody knew where Loudoun County was till a couple of years ago. Now we're infamous for our crazy school board and all of the chaoticness that went around Loudoun County School Board. And they're still fighting their ideological battles. Matter of fact, yesterday one of the principals said if you violate the school board's edict, which goes against the governor's executive order, they're going to charge your child with trespassing if they show up to the school without a mask. But one of the things that really turned around Virginia and the Virginia elections in 2021 was this critical race theory. And I'll tell you my personal experience. My son's first day of high school, his very first day, was on virtual learning in the 2020 COVID year, and the principal gets on the video conference and says, doesn't of course say, this is going to be hard and we're going to get through this, don't worry about it. Now his reaction was, his first speech to these new high school students was, we're not going to put up with racism in this school, and your white supremacy is not going to be accepted here, and berated them for 15 minutes. And that's really been the direction of our public schools. So tell me what you're homeschooling, but tell me what you think about critical race theory and what you'll do to stop it in Congress.
Yeah, I love what I'm sorry for what you all have gone through, but thank you also. We honor you because you've been on the front lines. We actually have one of the Loudoun County moms, a part of South Carolina down here. So number one, I hate critical race theory. It is a social construct that is an abomination to this nation. I have been speaking out against critical race theory from the very beginning. City council, because our city council in Charleston County is horrific. I can explain that later or at another time if you like. But I've been attending city council meetings, school board meetings. And so what am I going to do about it at a federal level? I would be supportive of Congressman Bob Good's legislation to combat CRT if I was already in office. And I would, partner with our state in making sure that this is happening. So it is at a local level, we have great number of mama bears that have wrote legislation to combat all of this. We actually have 2 or 3 bills right now to fight this. We're also working with getting new individuals elected in at the state level. And because our state, I don't know if you've ever heard of the doctrine of the lesser magistrate, but in this hour, our leaders should have stepped into these school board meetings to stand in the gap and hold these school board officials accountable. Maybe they wouldn't have listened, but throughout our nation's history, anytime a lesser magistrate stood up against a greater magistrate on behalf of people that were being oppressed, there was a massive change. So then we also have parents who are running for school board. We're already actively engaged in this. We have a coalition. We're small but mighty in the sense, it's a group of parents, grandparents. So I will always fight against that. We've built great relationship with teachers who have quit working or have been fired, and they've given us copies of the course syllabus or the curriculum that supports these things. So we'll take that and present that forward, because all of these school board meetings are recorded, so we're holding them accountable. So we're doing a number of different things, but I will always fight against it. I'm not for it at all.
I appreciate that, and it is an important fight, because really what it is it's segregation. I mean, they really want to segregate races. It's unbelievable, how segregation is now anti-racist. No, segregation is racist. and that's precisely what what the left is standing for, and that's who the real racists are. But let's talk about Joe Biden is about to go into New York City. And by the way, you mentioned Bob Good. I just want to put a little shout out here. That's a former constitutional candidate series alumni, and we supported him in his race recently, and he's been doing a great job. I think he's going to be a real leader in Congress for years to come. But Joe Biden is going to New York City, where I'm from. And he's going to talk to the new mayor about the crime, and it's pretty amazing. Someone finally got to the president and said people care about crime, so he's going to go, and I suspect he's going to talk about gun violence, and he's going to talk about guns and taking guns off the street and guns, not mentioning anything about the Soros prosecutors who are letting criminals go who commit offenses with guns and commit violence with guns or knives or cars or whatever, just letting, or their bodies, just letting them go and go to commit crimes again. He's going to talk about guns. So, the real question is for you, what are acceptable limitations on the Second Amendment?
I don't believe personally there should be any limitations on the Second Amendment.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, my husband brings up I don't know if he got this example from someone else, but I'm just going to put this out here. I always think about this. What are you going to arrest the gun for that committed a crime? If a gun is sitting on the middle of a table, how can it get up, walk off, and commit a crime? Guns are not the problem. If we take all the guns away, there is still going to be a high level of crime because there is a black market where people can buy these things. So the gun is not the problem. It's the person behind it. We need to. It's just like the people that rioted on King Street in downtown Charleston. Many of them were let go without any course of accountability. They just let them go, and these businesses were destroyed. And then COVID came with that whole situation, and a lot of these businesses have closed down. I can walk through downtown Charleston, and so many have closed. And so the guns are not the problem. It's the person behind it. So if we want to crack down on crime, then we really need to take a look at what's going on behind the scenes. It's not the gun that's the problem.
Absolutely, 100% correct. And I'm glad you answered that. I gave you kind of a little trick question, but you knocked it out of the park, and I appreciate that. Yeah, Constitutional Rights PAC, kind of got founded on the gun issue. We hosted Gun Appreciation Day, and in 2013, and stopped Biden and Obama. Biden actually said that he guaranteed there would be gun control by the end of January 2013, and we shoved it down his throat. Gun rights have been more prevalent, and more guns have been sold in this country since that point than almost any time in history. Now, the issue is the soft on crime progressivism that is plaguing our cities and plaguing our nations. And, I doubt that Biden is going to say much, if anything, about that. But let's talk about, obviously, the big issue of 2022 and 2021, which is these vaccines and these vaccine mandates. President Trump has said, I created the vaccines, I got them done, or, he helped facilitate the vaccines, and he got them done in record time. At the same time, Biden and Kamala were saying that I'm not going to take Trump's vaccine, and I'm real skeptical about it. And it was okay then to be skeptical, but now that Biden's president and wants to get a jab in every arm, the idea is to mandate these vaccines. Where do you stand on the vaccine? Where do you stand on the vaccine mandate? And give us your thoughts on all of that.
I'm completely against it. I've been against the mandates from the beginning. When my opponent was running in when she was campaigning in 2020, she was always wearing a mask. I very rarely have worn a mask, and I don't have it in here, but the one I wear is holy. It literally has holes with rhinestones glued on top of the front. That's what I wear on the planes. And, I don't think it's the business of the government to tell me that I have to have a vaccine in order to have my rights. And in fact, that's taking my rights away. And submitting to that narrative, I've already become a slave to the system. My opponent has always been a mask mandate pusher. She's listed by South Carolina DHEC as a vaccine influencer. And so she's been for that. In fact, I don't know if you're aware of it, but same day, same outfit, two different narratives. CNN, she said, I'm against, or I'm for the mandates, and I actually helped promote these ads. And then on Fox News, I'm for natural immunity, I'm for this. Personally, and I don't mind sharing this, I've chosen not to get the vaccine. That's my constitutional right. If someone wants to get it or doesn't want to get it, that's their choice. But no one is going to force me or my children or my family or any American while I'm in office or not in office to take this vaccine. And I will fight with everything I have inside of me.
Like I said, they're pushing the masks on the kids still, while these football games are sold out all across the country, and nobody's wearing a mask on them, including the politicians who show up hobnob with the celebrities, in LA. And the reason is there's no reason to wear a mask at a game. There's no reason to suffocate our kids in schools. The masks don't work. Even Fauci said so in the beginning. But it's a mechanism of control. And look, there are certain circumstances where you got to put the dang mask on if you want to take a ride on a plane. There's no choice. I mean, it's either that or get thrown in prison. That's the kind of tyranny we have to fight. I actually have a T-shirt that I wear on the plane, and it says, "Does this commie mask make my backside look fat?" And most times I get high fives. I don't think I really got any dirty looks. People think it's funny, but so do you in terms of debate here and free speech and all of these other things. Whoopi Goldberg just got suspended 2 weeks for saying something stupid about the Holocaust, I personally think it's her right to do so. I don't think she should be suspended. I think she's in a position to give her opinion, and that's her opinion. Even if she's wrong, she has the right to be wrong. We have the right to our opinion. We have the right to fight, and misinformation just means that we're not following the government narrative. But speech is under attack at all times. Do you think hate speech legislation is constitutional?
No. I think that's a loaded question. We have a lot of issues. Free speech we've seen in the last 2 years moves of where churches have been shut down, not just Christian churches, but mosques and people standing up for it. And that was considered hate speech. It's been considered domestic terrorism for moms to show up to school board meetings to use that. And so I think that if there is a threat, obviously, to someone's life, like a death threat, obviously, that is not free speech. That's a threat. So if there is true threats to our domestic terrorism, I think domestic terrorism is actually people acting out against our Constitution. That's an act of domestic terrorism. But to think that these individuals that are signing up to speak at a school board meeting, and that's called hate speech, and so we want to, but they're actually using their free speech to combat against something that's tyranny, that's where I stand.
Good.
That answers your question.
And it's important. Like I said, our Constitution is under attack. Every single element of our Constitution is under attack. And at the same time, the left wing screams defund the police, and I'm sure you're not a defund the policer.
No.
They're out there using the government as their own private police force to imprison and to attack their political opponents. And in that vein, there are lots of stories where conservatives and Christians are being persecuted, and other things. So how do you feel about warrantless searches and seizures? A lot of people think that that's a left-wing issue, but I just want to hear your opinion.
I'm so glad that you brought this up. I am not okay with it by any means. So we have an example of this actually in Charleston, which Charleston County is in my district. At the very beginning, we have this Mayor Tecklenburg, that actually has this code enforcement. They're not licensed police officers, and the court that they conduct themselves in is not a true court. It's a kangaroo court. But anyway, he was sending these code enforcement officers into businesses without a search warrant, finding the business, the employees, and the consumers in that business who were not wearing a mask.
That's so brazen.
Then they had to show up to court, which is not a true court. And these are not licensed peace officers. that same mayor at this point, when they were trying to vote in equity inclusion and pay reparations for the Civil War and send one of our statues that they had no right to take down, the John C. Calhoun statue, to California as a exhibit, he required a negative COVID test, a mask, a vaccine, and a vaccine passport conveniently on the day that they were voting on these things. So anyone who had not had a vaccine, didn't have a vaccine passport, didn't want to wear a mask, could not attend this meeting. And he even went so far as a recent conservative councilwoman to attack her. There was sitting council members without wearing any masks, and she was asked, because of her conservative views, to get up and to conduct her business via Zoom in another room of the city hall. But there was other people there that were Democrats not wearing a mask, and they could sit there without a mask. So to answer your question, we see this in our district, and I'm completely against it, and will continue to fight against that with every fiber of my being.
I certainly appreciate that. I have one more question about the issues, and then a couple questions about the campaign. And this is a deal breaker for us in our PAC. Are you pro-life or pro-choice?
I am pro-life, absolutely no exceptions.
All right. Well, and that is our stance as well. It's too important of an issue, and it is that kind of issue where we can't support someone who is soft on that issue. And I think the country is coming back to the issue of life, over death, and I certainly appreciate your strong stance on that. So about the campaign. It's important that that you have a plan, and it's important that you have a path to victory, right? Even if it seems far out, you're going against an incumbent who gets a lot of airtime on Fox, and quite frankly, an incumbent who definitely needs to be taken down. So tell me, how do you plan to do that? Do you have a ground game going on in the district there? I know I've been to Charleston, and it's a beautiful, beautiful city. Just walking around there is fantastic. So, walking the streets and doing those things is not much of an effort. It's more, I'm sure it's more a labor of love out there.
Yeah, you ask a great question, so thank you so much. And I just wanted to clarify on the pro-life. My opponent is actually pro-choice for rape and incest, and said so on Fox News not too long ago. Just wanted to throw that out there. But our ground game is huge in the sense that's our strategy. We are the underdog in this race, but we've been fighting hard for 9 months to connect and build relationship with individuals. A lot of people didn't know how my opponent has voted or what's going on, so a lot of it has been education. And if you look at the model that Jesus had with his grassroots movement, he didn't build name recognition because he understood who he was. He focused on connecting and relationship, and there was nothing that could control that grassroots movement. And so that's what we've been doing, is being real with people, building connection and relationship little by little. And so ground game is the strategy. I know my opponent is actually actively seeking to employ people to do this, and we have people that are already throughout the district knocking on doors, opening up their homes for meet and greets and what have you. And so that's what we're going to do. We understand that we have to raise money, absolutely, but this race is not about pompous pulpits, fame, name, pomp, and circumstance. It's about the people. And if you meet the people where they're at, I'm an average everyday person just like you and everyone else, and understanding that, listening to them, what is your issue, and then talking about solutions, then we're good.
Awesome. So do you enjoy fundraising? Is that something that is there some people love it and some people absolutely despise it?
I love talking to people. I don't know that I love fundraising itself. But it is fun getting to talk with people and, converse in that aspect. And then the fruit of that, of course, is the fundraising. So I guess you could say I enjoy it and then I don't like it. That's just being honest.
Understood. That's good. Because unfortunately, in this the day and age, it's an important necessity, and the fact that you're doing it is says a lot. It's not an enjoyable thing for most people, but getting out there and making sure that you have the resources in order to win is super important, and very important. And final thoughts. Please, don't talk to me. Talk to the audience. Why should the Constitutional Rights PAC support you?
Because I am a Christian constitutional conservative, and it's time to take the power away from the government and give it back to the people. So my promise is to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as originally ordained and ordered for this country. And I think that anyone that comes to the table with that heart, humility is the first place. I think we're going to see a red tsunami. We're going to see a move unlike anything we've ever seen. So I thank you for what you're doing and standing behind candidates like myself and others that really want to fight for this nation. And the only hope we have is by linking arms and doing it together.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate your time this morning, and I wish you luck in the race, and you're going to get our support and our endorsement, and look, we gotta win back this seat. We can't leave this seat to someone who is duplicitous and who is rhino-ish as Nancy Mace. So we need Lynz Piper Loomis, and look, go to our website, constitutionalrightspac.com. You'll be able to find Lynz on our page, and you'll be able to donate directly to Constitutional Rights PAC, and those donations will go directly to your campaign. We'll even pay for the credit card charge for anybody who donates to you through our PAC. The other important note is you can go directly to your site and donate to the max if you can afford it. Donate to the max. And what is your website?
Absolutely, thank you. It's lynzsc.com.
lynzsc.com. Everybody go to lynzsc.com. And we appreciate your time and effort, and look forward to seeing you in Congress.
All right. Thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Constitutional Rights PAC is responsible for the content of this message.
All right, welcome back to the Constitutional Rights PAC candidate series here. We have a great candidate today, Lynz Piper Loomis, who's running in South Carolina. Again, let me